Carrington and Oakley and King Seat ran for roughly 40 to 50 years before they were shut down as hospitals. During that time, you had around 8 to 10 people. So you do some quick math, roughly 400 people that died inside of.
Okay. Could you say that again?
私の名前はテオカ。
こんにちは。
こんばんはの挨拶。
こんばんは。
So our friend will be arriving soon. We'll be learning a lot of different things. I'll run through all of the briefing before we head out now. So we'll be running through quite a lot of things, namely Auckland's history. A lot to do with the tribe of Auckland City as well, Ngāti Whātua. We'll be talking a lot about Maori history tonight, specifically Maori history, things to do with customs, rituals, things as karakia. So karakia is like a sacred prayer before we leave the tour. So as we'll be talking a lot about a lot of sort of dark topics and some more spookier sort of stuff to do with the Maori culture, we'll be doing 2 karakia, which are 2 blessings, one at the beginning of the tour and one at the end of the tour. Whereabouts from Japan are you?
Osaka.
Osaka? Awesome. I'm looking forward to going to Japan one day, maybe Fukuoka, because my name's Teoka. So
Oh, yeah.
it might be
Sounds
cool to get
similar.
something with my name in it.
Yeah, kind of like funny. なんか今聞きたいこと確認したことあります？そう特にはまだ大丈夫。
今日のツアーと関係ないんですけど、キングシードホスピタルのゴーストストーリーについて何か知ってますか？スプーカーズっていうお化け屋敷に行ったんですけど。
Do you know any like horror story about King Seat Hospital?
So namely, just the history of the place. So, King Seat was So there was 2 major asylums in Auckland City. One of them was Carrington and Oakley. We'll be going to a place that's similar tonight, an old hospital asylum, a mental asylum. So Carrington and Oakley was the first one. Then it was replaced by King Seat Hospital. Now, during their time, this is not long after the Second World War, so they were kind of, if you think about things in terms of like how medical technology, how medicines have advanced since the Second World War till these days, during that time it was still quite experimental. So a lot of the treatments that they were doing to patients would be deemed inhumane these days. So the average life expectancy of people that went in there, it wasn't very long. Carrington and Oakley and King Seat ran for roughly 40 to 50 years before they were shut down as hospitals. During that time, you had around 8 to 10 people that died annually. So you do some quick math, 8 to 10 people a year, they ran for over 40 years, that's roughly 400 people that died inside of the asylum walls. The place, you can visit both places now. Carrington and Oakley has been turned into a university, and King Seat Hospital is now the spookers, like scary attraction.
Yeah, I went to there, but I asked them, but no one knows about the story of that hospital.
The hospital itself. So I would say a lot of like restless souls of people who were, like mentally unhealthy. So you can imagine the criteria to be put into a hospital like that in the old days was a lot lower than it would be for such a mental health ward these days. For example, people were put in there if you had learning disabilities, things like autism, Down syndrome, even just things like dyslexia, you couldn't read, or if you were just suffering from mental health issues like depression and things like that, it'd be likely you would end up in a hospital like that. Where is this guy? Just check where my friend is. This is Jermaine. Good evening. What's your name?
I'm Seiya. Seiya.
From Japan, Osaka.
Kind of camera, you got the Action 3. Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so as long as you've got good shoes on, you should be fine. I'm sure you've gone for a walk before. There's nothing more dangerous than that. So we'll be doing some, like I mentioned earlier, some Maori customs and rituals as part of Maori culture and traditions. Whenever we're talking about anything spiritual or ghostly or dark or of that sort of macabre nature, we sort of have to cover all bases. So we'll be doing a couple of rituals tonight. One is the karakia, the initial karakia that I'll be doing before we leave. So I'll do one karakia before we leave, and at the end of the tour I'll also wrap up with another karakia. We're not entering any cemetery or wahi tapu today, but we do take a tour that runs through a cemetery as well. So on that tour we would also do a water cleansing ceremony, which is as part of Maori culture, just to wash any spirits off us throughout the tour. You're ready to go? You guys all ready to go?
Yeah, fine.
Sweet. So we can start walking now. We'll head this way, guys. So I've been doing this tour for like 10 plus years. I used to work for the old owner of Auckland Ghost Tours. At that time it was mainly a crime tour. So it talked about a lot of murders, suicides, public hangings. We'll still tell some of those stories tonight, but we're in the process of reopening the company and doing something a little bit different. So we'll be adding a lot more theatrical elements as the tour reopens, including things like having some theatre elements and some actors on to tell more cultural, authentic stories of the Maori people. We feel especially now it's important to share cultural knowledge and things that people actually want to hear about. I don't think everyone really just wants to hear about murder stories, hangings. We'll be focusing a lot more on things that tantalise all the senses. So we'll be touching on, some of the tribal rituals associated with the Maori people. Now, as Maori people are tribal, all of the customs and rituals that we'll be talking tonight will be mainly from my tribe of Ngāpuhi and Tainui. So just bear that in mind. The mana whenua of this land, of Auckland City, is Ngāti Whātua, and then Ngāti Paua in Waiheke Island area. Then we've got Te Kawerau Maki in the West Auckland coastal region. The stories that we share tonight regarding the Maori people, there'll be some stories of the Ngāti Whātua people, namely in an area that was formerly known as Te Horotiu Pā. Te Horotiu Pā is quite an interesting place. It has since been revitalised into a beautiful park, Albert Park. But before that, it's been used for a number of different things, including an open-air mortuary during the 1918 influenza pandemic, where we had roughly around 15,000 people die in Auckland City. There's quite a lot of dead bodies to accumulate in the city. And our first story will touch a little bit on the arrival of the influenza pandemic before we head on through to the original foreshore of Auckland City. There we'll touch on some of the tribal warfare of Auckland City and Te Kawerau Maki.
お祓い、お清め、
なんかそのお墓の近くに今日行くらしくて、そこでお清めのお水も使うらしいです。
言ってましたね。
Right, to take a seat over here while I tell our first story. There'll be a few areas you get to sit down. That way we're not walking the whole time. Can be a little bit tough on the legs. So this area here was originally developed for our original train station which runs through there. At the moment all of our train stations run underground through Britomart train station, but prior to that the train station was located down there. Now I'm not just a big fan of trains, which is why I'm just mentioning this earlier. This pathway that we're sitting on now was one of the original thoroughways that they used to cart the dead bodies of the 1918 influenza pandemic. Now Auckland City is quite young in terms of just its historical age as well as its architecture. Most of the early colonial architecture in this part of the city was wiped out in a Great Fire. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on in the talk. Now, through this area here, we had bodies carried through via horse and carriage that were transported from Auckland City to Waikumete Cemetery. Now, I mentioned earlier that one of the parks in Auckland City was used as an open-air mortuary during the early outbreak of the 1918 influenza pandemic. Now, the influenza pandemic originally arrived here to Auckland City aboard ships carrying soldiers back from the First World War. When they returned back home, they had also carried through with them some of the Spanish influenza plague. With the amount of bodies that was seen in Auckland Hospital in the first week, we had around 1,500 people die. Because of the influx of bodies coming into Auckland Hospital, they ended up shutting down the Auckland Hospital and using 3 of Auckland City's parks as open-air mortuaries. These parks are Myers Park, Victoria Park and Albert Park. One of those parks we'll be walking through tonight. So we can carry on from here. So we're just going to head to the end of this alleyway and turn right before we head to our next location.
この駅も昔は地下鉄だったんですけど建て替えられて綺麗になったらしくて、でその本当に
So we're just going to head across the road to Gore Street, to the corner of the original foreshore of Auckland City. Before we tell the first Maori story that I'll be doing our kariki for the night, don't really need a kariki to talk about the influenza pandemic. But anything sort of Maori, we just cover all bases. So I'll just get you guys to rest up on that wall just so we keep the pathway clear for anyone coming through. This is the part where I'll do a kariki. I'll get you just to close your eyes. Head down. Kia mā taratara ki uta, kia mā kina kina ki tai. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. E hiake te atakura, e tio, he huka, he haohunga, tihe mauri ora. That's the end of our kariki, guys. You can lift your head up now. Yeah, that's all good. Thank you, guys. So just the reason why we do a kariki before anything like this is to cleanse the space before we talk about some pretty weird and dark stuff. So the Māori culture is quite unique for a couple of reasons. Pre-colonial times were pretty dark. There was a lot of warfare, tribal warfare amongst different tribal regions.